Frederick wrote a letter. "I am safe," he wrote Anna Murray in Baltimore. "Come as fast as you can." Anna was free. It was easy for her to join Frederick in New York. They were married in Mr. Ruggles's house, but they could not stay hidden there forever, and no other place in New York City was safe for them. Where could they go? Frederick had worked in shipyards. Mr. Ruggles told him that there were many big shipyards in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Besides, the people of New Bedford were against slavery. Frederick would be much safer there. But not safe enough. The slave catchers were still looking for Frederick Bailey. Frederick Bailey would always be a haunted man. So Frederick would have to change his name. He changed his last name to Douglas. A new name for a new life, he told Anna proudly. And the young couple settled down in New Bedford. By the end of the first year, they had a baby daughter. Another year passed, and Frederick's first son was born. Frederick had to work hard to support his growing family. He chopped wood, dug cellars, moved rubbish. He swept and scrubbed and loaded the big ships that sailed in and out of New Bedford Harbor. He worked in a brass factory. He sawed logs in a sawmill. He took any job he could find. He worked very hard. He did not earn very much money, but Frederick didn't care. He was living as a free man at last. But what about those who were not free? There were still almost 3 million slaves in the South. What about them? Frederick wanted so much to help in some way, but what could he do? He was only a poor runaway slave himself. One day, Frederick went to Nantucket for a meeting of the abolitionists, the men who were working to end slavery. All morning he listened to speeches. Then it was noon. Most of the people got up. They wandered outside to eat lunch on the lawn. They talked to the people they knew. But Frederick didn't know anyone, so he stayed in his seat. "Mr. Douglas?" A man was standing by his side. "My name is William Coffin. I have heard you speak about slavery in New Bedford." Frederick had given a few talks at the Negro Methodist Church. "We would like you to say a few words to us here." Talk to these important men? What could he possibly have to say to them? "I have no fine words. I have nothing to say," Frederick said. Mr. Coffin smiled. "But you have something better than fine words, Mr. Douglas. You have a story to tell, the story of your life as a slave." "Will anyone be interested in that?" Frederick wondered. Mr. Coffin nodded. And a few hours later, Frederick found himself looking out at 500 people. They were all waiting for him to begin. Frederick was not used to giving speeches to such important men. At first he was afraid. Then the memories came rushing back. Frederick forgot to be nervous. He talked about his mother and how he had been taken from her. He talked about Grandmother Bailey and how he had been taken from her too. He talked about life at Old Master's, how hungry and cold he had been. He talked about the good days in Baltimore and the bad days in St. Michael's. Frederick talked about his life as a slave. When Frederick finished talking, everyone in the audience stood up and cheered. A man ran up to him. His name was William Lloyd Garrison, and he was the leader of the abolitionists. Garrison put his arm around Frederick. "Is this a thing you have been listening to?" he shouted to the audience. "Is this a piece of property to be owned? Or is this a man?" "A man, a man," 500 voices thundered back.